I've had the privilege of being able to try some pretty great business and first class seats. But today I'm trying perhaps the most controversial seat on the market on Finnair. It's a business class seat that doesn't even recline. Why the heck did Finnair install these seats, and are they any good? Let's find out on this flight from Helsinki to Chicago on the A330. Finnair as an airline is really struggling, and like many things in life, the challenges of their route network were eloquently distilled by Monty Python in the 1980 hit song Finland. Of course, I can't play it due to copyright, but the relevant stanza is,
"You're so near to Russia, so far from Japan, quite a long way from Cairo, lots of miles from Vietnam."
Finnair's strategy was to connect the US and Western Europe to the east, flying over the pole and over Russian airspace. But with the war in Ukraine, sanctions, and NATO membership, that just isn't feasible anymore. And Helsinki isn't a good connection point with the rest of Europe because it's quite a long way from the Mediterranean. So Finnair started hemorrhaging cash. They've instituted a series of draconian cuts to their onboard service, and even cut free checked bags for long-haul business class passengers. Their nickel and diming resembles low-cost carriers. I took the regional train to the Helsinki airport. There was a separate line to check in for flights bound to the US, and Finnair has a terrible 12-kilogram weight limit for business class and 8 kilograms for economy. My bag was 14 kilograms, so it had to be checked. Fortunately, I had booked this ticket under the old rules that came with a free check bag. But you'll have to pay for a check bag, even in business class, which is ludicrous. Finnair deserves to be ridiculed for this. Hey, so it's me from the future. This is what I get for recording flight reviews up to a year in advance before they go live on the channel. This baggage policy was so controversial and so poorly received that Finnair finally backtracked in December of 2023. But I'm still covering it, and I'm still holding it against Finnair because this is an airline that somehow thought this was a good idea. I walked through the rather elegant Helsinki airport, which also boasts free Wi-Fi. With some time to kill, I had my choice of lounge. I first visited the Plaza Premium Lounge, accessible with Capital One cards and Priority Pass. I normally like Plaza Premium lounges. It had a nice view of the runway and apron, but the lounge itself, you can skip it. The food buffet didn't look good at all. There were some basic drinks and additional premium ones. I honestly only stayed for a few minutes before heading elsewhere. The Finnair lounge is divided into two sections, business and platinum. The platinum side has made-to-order food, including a famous reindeer burger, but sadly is only open to those with One World status, which I lacked. So I had to make do with the business side of the house. The lounge was pretty nice, with tons of seating options. The food spread, while only boasting a few options, was pretty good quality. There's also a full-service bar, and I ordered a Tom Collins with local Finnish gin. I went to the gate an hour and 15 minutes prior to departure. Like other flights to the US, there were extra passport checks to enter the gate area. There was a separate waiting area for premium passengers, though there still wasn't enough seating for everyone. There were no announcements about boarding being delayed, which it was. There's a total of 28 business class seats on the A330 in a 1-2-1 configuration. Unlike many other airlines, all the seats are the same in each row, and I had a solo seat by the window. We were offered champagne, water, or blueberry juice, and I absolutely love the glassware. The amenity kit was rather basic with no socks, toothbrush, or comb, but there were slippers. I was expecting Bose headphones from other reviews, but again we have cost cutting, so we got these cheap ones, which weren't that great. Okay, let's talk about this controversial seat. It doesn't recline. Instead, you simply extend a section between the seat and the footrest, making it a lounger, similar to a couch. The rear cabinet has storage, a remote, and both USB A and C power. There's a wireless charging pad, and full power. The tray extends from the side armrest, and can be deployed in either a half or full configuration. There's also a large storage area and water bottle. Thank God there are individual air vents. I'll cover bedding and sleeping in the seat a bit later. Boarding was complete 5 minutes late, and we took off 22 minutes after scheduled departure. Flying time was scheduled to be 9 hours at 38,000 feet. Service began with a hot towel. I ordered the Northern Blush, their signature cocktail, which came from a can but was pretty good. It was served with smoked nuts. As for the meal, there were 2 starters and a choice of one of 3 mains: pork, cod, or vegetarian pasta. I was very curious what the food would be like from this Helsinki-based airline.
But tonight, we dine in hell!
First up was beef tataki with ponzu. Next was green pea puree and potatoes. The pork belly was served with potatoes, beans, and a sort of sauce. It was flavorful and quite tender. For dessert, I was offered either cheese or a dessert, and I got this lemon tart. I actually really enjoyed all the food in the meal, and found that it was well plated, even though it was all served on a single tray. As for the service, one person was very warm, and the other incredibly cold. And would be welcome at American Airlines for sure. During the meal, we started flying in circles. I'm pretty sure that's not the right way to North America. The captain told us that we were in a holding pattern due to Icelandic airspace being closed due to equipment failure. So I sat back and watched John Wick 4 with a glass of blueberry juice. Speaking of John Wick, let's talk entertainment. It was on a beautiful 18-inch screen, though it doesn't move or tilt at all. The moving map is fantastic and very responsive. There's a front camera, only available on the ground, and a downward-facing camera. Sadly, there's no tail camera. The entertainment selection was fine, and I found things to watch, but others do have more options. Wi-Fi is available for 1 hour, 3 hours, or the entire flight, but was a bit pricey. Business class passengers do get an hour of free Wi-Fi, and the speeds were acceptable for basic web functions. The bedding was comprised of 2 pillows, a mattress pad, and a blanket. The pillows in particular are vital not just for sleeping, but for lounging in the non-reclining seat. The footwell is quite large, and another advantage of this seat is the ability to sleep on your side, which is very hard to do in most business class seats. While I slept, we flew over Greenland. An hour 45 prior to landing, there was the snack with no choice of option. It was fruit, a small salad, and a vegetable quiche. The fruit and salad were fine, but the quiche was incredibly dry, and I ended up just not eating much of it. Just like when I left Chicago, the city was blanketed in smoke from the Canadian wildfires, though we could still make out the skyline. So Finnair's business class on the A330 with the new seats. I actually really liked it, but there's a strong possibility that you may not. I'm able to get fairly comfortable fairly easily, so I actually enjoyed the no recline seats. But without the pillow in exactly the right place, which is on you to find, it's also quite possible that you don't find the seat comfortable in the slightest. Every person's body is different, and the seat is definitely polarizing. But overall, I think it's a great product. When I booked it, it was very hard to find award availability. But with Finnair moving to Avios and guaranteeing award seats on every flight, there's a good chance that Finnair becomes a reliable way of getting to Europe on points. I just really wish they stopped with the cost cutting on the bags and the headphones, as they have what could easily be one of the better ways of crossing the Atlantic. So that concludes the King in the North. So who was the King in the North? Well, of course, it's a reference to that scene. It's also a reference to the polar bears of Svalbard, which sadly I didn't see alive. But ultimately, it's about finding the best of the Nordic airlines. I flew on Air Baltic, SAS, Figaro, Norwegian, and Finnair. With Fleer dead, that really only leaves Norse, and we'll see if they stay in business. So who was the king of those? Well, it's between SAS and Finnair. Both are really struggling financially. Both have made dramatic cuts and changes in service that cheapen the experience. Since I took this trip, SAS is getting bought out by Air France KLM and joining SkyTeam. That's definitely not a good sign. So as much as I enjoyed SAS business class on the A330 all those years ago, I think the win has to go to Finnair. Just please, stop with the low-cost shenanigans. You're better than that, aren't you? So what's next? Well, it's time to revisit the Americas with United's new interior, Aeromexico, and a hell of a lot of American Airlines flights. But then, I'm actually headed right back to Europe again, but I could really use a haircut. I hear the barber's getting married.